Very interesting shows, very interesting evening, and we're trying to get this together, the best picture possible for you all out there in TV land. But anyway, this is a new situation here, but didn't have a guest tonight. We got a lot of things going on out there in the community. It's hard to corral some of these guests, but we'll move on anyway. The important part is how we help people stay sober. One thing we do is to help people stay sober is we suggest they make meetings and make meetings regularly. Some people say regularly, some people say 90 and 90 their first 3 months, some say 120 their first 4 months. Some people say every day, long as they can, long as they need to. And then others say various stages of that. We don't think any one solution fits all, just like it's a program where during the 12-step recovery program, we don't promote any religions. People get to grow at their own pace and choose their religious beliefs at their own rate if they choose at all. And a lot of people go the spiritual path. So, taken with that, likewise, the number of meetings somebody make is not as important as them learning to stay sober one day at a time. Some people have a good mix of outpatient therapeutic services added in with their meetings. And then you got others that throw themselves all the way back into church, going to various meetings throughout the week to help at church, whether it's Bible study, whether it's prayer meeting, whether it's choir rehearsal, whether it's this board, that board, all the different boards at the different types of churches, and then outreach work, evangelizing at different stages. So we try to give a fine blend of that. We recommend our guys get involved in a civic organization, that they get involved in some spiritual program. And some people, their spiritual program is the program of recovery, period. They make it to these rooms of recovery, and that's where they stay, and that's where they spend their Sundays. That's where they spend their Saturdays. All the days that many people go to church, a lot of people in the recovery community choose to be in meetings in the recovery community, whether it's at such groups as the Wicker Park group that's over there on Rockwell and North Avenue, whether it's at South West Suburban Group, Fellowship Group that's out there in Forest Park, right across from the park, whether it be Evans Avenue at like 319 East 75th Street, the longest African American group in the city, the oldest African American group in the city, or whether it be at Mustard Seed, which last time I checked was at, I think, 507 West North Avenue, or somewhere in that vicinity. Haven't been there in a minute, as you can tell. But those various meetings are where people go to stay sober. And pretty much used to be round the clock. Now they're meetings up to about 15 hours a day in person. Then you have the Zoom groups that started and some that continued to do Zoom during the pandemic. So you have Zoom meetings where you can connect all over the country now via Zoom if you really got to see some people, but at the same time, you're not privy to get straight to a meeting, or time consuming. Sometimes it takes time to travel from this end of the city, that end of the city, this end of the city to the suburbs, or from the suburbs back into the city for these different meetings. So it really is helpful oftentimes, to just stop by and do those things. So it's really significant. And you can see I'm getting the flux out of this, not looking right. But anyway, I'm messing it up worse. But anyway, I'll do better next time and just get out the jacket, period. Yeah, so that's better. But anyway, as you see, I'm having a bad wardrobe malfunction day. But anyway, The important part is helping people stay sober no matter what we look like. And I guarantee you, I looked worse back then. Even my beard looked worse back then. But it's important that we continue to grow and help others grow. It's continue we reach out, and something that wasn't discussed as much 30 years ago when I entered recovery, and I'm glad it's gained momentum since then, is the fact that people have various diagnoses along with their substance abuse issues, or they may be having some serious mental health challenges. Now, the good part is those in recovery had started to deal with these things over 30 years ago more and more, and actually they always thought that people struggle with addiction was more mental, emotional than it was, and psychological more than it was physical. But oftentimes it's a lot of both. But true to form, many recovering people, once they get rid of their drink problem, they're pretty much normal by all standards of society. But there are those who still suffer or grow into anxieties, grow into depression, as they get away from that one group they did spend time with, which was that one they got high with, and start to isolate more. It's really important that we realize that isolation can be a sign of mental illness, but it also is a sign that people are going overboard, whether they're drinking or drugging. So those are some signs that show up. And we have to guard against those and try to encourage people to seek help and do interventions. In the recovery community, it's real important that we try to address the mental health, but it's just as important now when we got this prevalence for violence and everything. Many of us in the recovery community and many of us in society realize that it's the underlying mental health, emotional health, psychological struggles of people that's causing people to be even more violent. And then when you add the proliferation, which we was just talking about as we was wrapping up a recovery meeting before I came here, that there is so many programs about killing on TV. How do we expect our children to be less violent when you got Dateline doing murder investigations? You got 50/50, 20/20, all these different shows doing exposés on murders and doing shows on murders and all these sinister plots by loved ones, friends, to kill people. And then you got stuff running on some networks 10, 12 hours a day about killing. And then we expect these children in our streets to do less killing. Now let's add all the games that are out there now. And they always trying to say that movies and games do not contribute to the violence in society. I beg to differ. I think it lowers our sensitivity to death. And it also gives people a false narrative about the realities of death. See, every time we see somebody die in a movie, in a year or two at best, and if they're a major celebrity, by the next year they up and running and they're in another action-packed thriller. They're in another drama. They're in another murder mystery. But in real life, people don't come back from death. In real life, people do not come back from death. Then on all these games, it's really worse because you reset the game anytime you get tired of playing, don't like your score. You realize you're not going to beat your best score, so you just reset the game, start over, and you're going to go play again and see if you can get on a rhythm where you could beat your best score. But in real life, you can't reset shooting someone. You can't reset the murder. You can't reset the maiming of them physically by being shot. You can't reset all those lives that are ruined by shooting someone, from the victims to the perpetrators. Perpetrator ruined his life, ruined his family life. Even when they're not caught, oftentimes the lifestyles they lead trying to avoid being caught does not help them or their families. Or even if the family have an idea they killed somebody and trying to hold that secret, or live with that secret that they are protecting a family member that can be a menace to society, or can be a evil-minded human being, and then you start to wonder how much more destruction they doing in society. All them things wear on people's mental health. And I hate the fact that they take addiction and all that and project the bulk of it onto poor people, black people, brown people. And reality is our society in America especially is still majority Caucasian, which means there's the majority of the people on drugs are Caucasian, just by pure numbers. And then the reality is that the prevalence of violence among poor people is worldwide. Wherever there are poor people, there's more violence. Why? Because people struggling to come off the bottom. And sometimes when they're helpless and hopeless, the last thing they have that they might use as an instrument of power in a, quote, society where they have no power is violence. Is coercion, extortion. So these things are worldwide, but they get projected in America like it's just urban areas, it's just areas with African American, areas with Latino people, and it's not true. The reality is, too, the media does not promote those violent issues or drug issues in Americans. Great suburban cities, great upper echelon with Winnetka and Highland Park and Arlington Park, Arlington Heights. Those ritzy communities, they're not going to promote the problems of their kids on drugs in the major media. Why? Because a lot of them are the same people that's putting the media out. They're not going to talk about their neighbors' problems. It's easier for them to talk about poor people problems with addiction, poor people's problems. And one thing, the sad part is, while they're deflecting everything toward poor people, black and brown people, their children are getting worse instead of better. And they're contributing to that because they're enabling. They're not telling the real story. Let's look at how much the prevalence for drinking, being drunk, and anything and everything else that goes on reality TV shows that we see or may not see. So the reality is that those with money are struggling with alcohol and other issues as much as those that are in poverty in the city limits, those in poverty in the suburban areas, those in poverty across America, across the world. However, that the media does not project it that way. So what happens, though, when all of them start running into the cities, because it's sad, but some of the richer people, they just sent their kids, they give them a free ride, right into the city to go get high and stay there. Get out the neighborhood. Don't embarrass us. Rather, their status in the community means more than their child. Their status in the community means more than them taking on the mantle to continue to help their children with the resources they have available, given their great life financially. They chasing finance rather than helping some of these children that are drug addicted. And it's sad. And then they turn them loose on our city. The only good part came out of them turning their suburban kids loose on the city when all these Caucasian kids start to die on the west side of Chicago. We start to get a more influx of help more immediately. It's sad. It took white kids dying in black communities on the west side of Chicago to get a lot more help sent to the west side of Chicago. Suburban kids dying on our streets. Police officers' children dying in our street. Businessmen, people, children dying on the streets of the west side. For them to send more help with the addiction. But we accept it however it came. We're glad it's there. But also there's this underlying feeling that because the economic environment is shifting from the west, from Oak Park into Austin, into West Garfield, there's an increase in the value of the land and the need to have land closer to downtown Chicago that's been rebuilt. And then from the east out to get away from some of the density and all the high rises of the loop. People who want a more wholesome community life are moving back into the city. Is the other reason we're getting more services is they plan to change the whole dynamic from 90%, it was a 99, 98% African American 20 years ago. 10 years ago, it was about 95, 94% African American in a lot of North Lawndale, East West Garfield. Now it's about 70% African American. So there's a lot of the help geared because they're changing the whole community dynamic. Those are important questions to ask. Outside of the most important is we're in the saving lives period. I've tried to garner programs to help the people in our local community, and I still do. However, anyone shows up at the door, Hand Up Recovery Homes, 4032 West Van Buren, we will try to assist them in their recovery. Anyone shows up at our door, whether we generally help men with our housing program, but if women show up, we're going to try to get them in a women's treatment center or into a women's recovery facility. We are helping people no matter what. If they show up with mental health illnesses, we're going to try to get them hospitalized and get them back to being maintaining themselves and taking a medicine regular so that they then can move into a supervised housing unit for mentally ill and or get back to living independently with their family and or them living alone in some cases. We're going to help people wherever they need help and whenever they need help. However, there's a serious funding crisis in America. A lot of grant opportunities been closed off for these different avenues that people need help in because of our current government. And then right here in our state, we have people that are really fighting to get more funding, and they don't want more groups out there helping spread the wealth. They don't believe in spreading the wealth of services, even though they know there's a limit to what they're willing to do, to places they're willing to go. I implore them to get more funding to more new community groups that haven't been funded, that do a lot of work in the trenches, little community groups that need the funding to expand their services, that'll go door to door in the communities, while many people get paid to go door to door that don't go door to door in the community. We want to expand our footprint in helping people get the resources, but it takes more funding for that. But we do our best with or without it. We don't turn the opportunity to help people away. Now, we do have to admit our limitations, and that's just a fact. But the wealth of information, the dozens of other groups, the dozens of meeting places in Chicago, the different organizations that have services that are well funded by the state, county, and city until they can get their federal grant stock back up. It's organizations like Habilitative Assistance Incorporated, HSI, or I Am Able Foundation on Roosevelt and Holman, HSI 415 South Kilpatrick, or the Bobby Wright Center that still operates, or the Sankofa Village that they're building on Madison and Kilpatrick. That's going to be a huge multi-purpose, multi-tier service provider, or the West Side Health Authority main office, Cicero and Chicago Avenue, have a myriad of services. So it is real important that what we can't do, we send people where they can get services. Now, I wish all these organizations were more active on here so people would know they exist, but I mean, my goal to help people exceeds me just putting the word out for Hand Up Recovery Homes, especially when we have limited capacity, limited grants to help hundreds and thousands more people. So my goal is, okay, I care enough about people that I'm going to promote those other multi-million-dollar programs. some of which are on here, some that sent representatives here to discuss their program, some that you may not even have heard of, because there are a few that I have not heard of. You know, I'm glad to report that a school that started in North Lawndale called the Learn Charter Schools now has about 12 to 15 other schools across the city doing great work educating young people. I just found that out a few weekends ago. I knew they had a few schools. I did not know they had nearly 15 schools. But it's great to say they started in our struggling community, and they're a successful charter school model that has expanded across the city. But it's too many people probably do not know that charter school exists. There are other charter schools with bigger names, with more publicity, but this school has educated people without trying to promote themselves, but they've been trying to just educate the children. And it's some people do that, you know, and that is great. And so wherever there's a gap, we want to fill it. Wherever there's opportunity to help the people better, we want to help them get better services. Wherever there's an opportunity to share spiritually and help people enhance their life, we want to do what it takes to help people turn their life around. And I know sometimes it seems like, and I do jump all over the place, and the reality is that there's no straight line to why people are addicted, and there's no straight line coming out of addiction. There's a lot of zigzagging. There's a lot of ups and downs, peaks and valleys, just like life itself for all, quote, normal people. And there's a lot of reasonings that help contribute to the problem. And I believe that inextricably and oftentimes overlooked is the contributions, the negative contribution of drug use and drug abuse, as well as the monetary gains of drug selling, contribute to the myriad issues of violence, but also that mental health contributes to drug addiction and violence. So those are two major issues plaguing the community, and I want to always touch on those, but I also want to touch on the inequities of how our society projects these things. A lot of people won't speak on it, you know, and unfortunately we let a lot of evils go by, because the worst part of substance abuse is denial. You can't get help for a problem you deny you have. I don't care how much other people see it and tell you, until you accept that you have it and you realize you had a problem and willing to work on a solution, you can't change it. Same with the way society projects poor people. If we don't change that perception and get to the reality, and then the falsehoods of money, riches, fame, fortune, status, it doesn't cure people or stop people from having the same abuse, substance abuse issue, mental health issues. Matter of fact, sometimes it exacerbates it because they so busy denying they have a problem because they chasing status, fame, fortune, and sometimes even the mental illness, emotional illness helps propel them. You know, this thing called ADHD, when untreated, can have people going on 3 hours sleep for long periods of time and spiraling out of control. And certain anxieties can do that to people. And they can seem super productive till they crash and have them crash episodes. So it's real important that we realize that a lot of these things are interconnected. But the important part that we try to always go back to is, first, we realize to help most people that we work with is helping them to recover from their alcoholism and their substance abuse, especially the substance abuse that really permeates even more violence, especially gun violence, because of the nature of the beast, so to speak. So we look forward to talking to you again in the future about some of these issues. Next week, our recurring guest, Rashad Tross, will be here with us. And in these last few minutes, I want to say there's a great community event going to be held. One of the last back-to-school, stay-in-school events of the year at, I think it's 1446 South Colon, St. Lutheran Church, Saturday from 11 to 3, Saturday from 11 to 3. And it's right across the street from Franklin Park in the North Lawndale community, 1 block east of 15th and Costner Street, 1 block east, 15th Costner Street. It's going to be dozens of groups there giving out things for school, providing services for the school children, providing services for the community. So come on out. I think it's 1456 South Colon, St. Lutheran, St. Paul Church, and I'll see you there. I'll be there, 15th and Colon, Saturday, 11 to 3. Take care. Peace out.